Hello everyone, welcome to our video series on explainable artificial intelligence, also known as XAI. This video series is produced by Datatonic. My name is June He. I'm a senior data scientist at Datatonic. And in this particular video, I'm going to talk to you about the allure and the many challenges of XAI, as well as the 5 reasons that you might want to validate before embarking on a journey of purposeful XAI. So the first question that you might have when you encounter this topic of XAI is that when does my organization need to think about XAI? Well, you might say that it's a really hot topic. Many people seem to be asking for a more explainable artificial intelligence. So let's look at some examples. First of all, you have the customers who have been told that the recommendations or the ads that they're receiving have been tailored to their personal taste. So they might want to know, what do these models know about me? What do these models think about me? Secondly, for a more internal audience, which is the stakeholders who are facing the decision of deploying ML model into production or not, they might need to gain some intuitive understanding of what the model is doing. In this case, to just present some performance metrics or to show them an architecture diagram of a very complex neural net perhaps does not do the job. And then thirdly, we have the regulators, whose task is to trace and track the accountability in algorithmic decision-making algorithms. And because machine learning employs so many parameters and hyperparameters that are increasingly further removed from the context of the problem that it's trying to solve, it becomes very difficult to validate each of these parameters in the same way that you probably would or would be able to with more traditional statistical models. And lastly, for ML engineers or data scientists like myself, sometimes you might find yourself staring at the models that you've just made, wondering why it's not learning as intended, or it seems to have a performance that's too perfect. In either case, it's a signal that there might be a bug and you want to be able to look into the model to be able to debug. So hopefully that was clear that there have been very high expectations and many requests that have been heaped onto XAI as an effort on endeavor. And indeed, XAI is not easy. And there are two main reasons for that. First of all, explaining is difficult, whether it is for humans or for a machine. And machine learning is a very special type of AI, which may have made it even more difficult. So let's break down the reasons. First of all, causal explanation is really hard to obtain in ML. But on the other hand, when we're expecting a good explanations, we typically do anticipate it to be a why explanation rather than just a how explanation. So in this case, because what machine learning is good at is to identify patterns in data and to produce predictions based on the associations in data that it's seeing. But what it is not good at, because it was usually not the learning objectives, is to understand the why and to come up with causal reasoning for its prediction. In this case, to ask a model that has never learned the why or was never even bothered to learn why, to give you an explanation as to why it's made certain decisions. It's not a very promising setup, as you can see. On the other hand, we also see the inherent lack of scalability for XAI solutions, because what is a good, sufficient explanation really vary depending on the audience, the content, and the context, and the medium through which you're conveying an explanation. To give you an example, if someone asks you to explain why an apple is falling down from a tree, usually it's safe not to have to go all the way back to the start of the universe and explain why, or to explain the Big Bang, right? But is it enough to explain just how gravity works? Or is it also relevant to mention that it's because the apples are ripe and that's why they're falling down from a tree? Or maybe someone has kicked the tree. So in this very stylized example, I hope that I've illustrated the fact that there are simply way too many options or possibilities for a good explanation. And it really depends on what's the question that you really want to know. So just like explanations, explainable AI is just a means to an end. And to achieve purpose for XAI, it really requires us to ask ourselves what is the question that you want to know most about from an explanation. And here we have compiled a list of reasons that you might want to do XAI with. So reason number 1 is compliances. This is when your AI workload is in a heavily regulated industry, such as financial services or healthcare. So in this scenario, you might find the regulations on AI governance or interpretability have posed a challenge to constrain the kind of ML decisions that you can make. However, on the flip side, all these constraints are also serving as information to help you to filter down the XAI techniques that you can use that are at your disposal. Reason number 2 is fairness. This is when your AI is making high-stake decisions that directly affect people. In this case, you want to ensure that you want to be able to inspect the biases in data and in the model itself, and to ensure that your model is not treating people in an unjust way. In this case, you might argue that to exclude certain protected attributes, such as gender or race, from an ML model that's deployed in a, say, hiring process, to exclude these features does not necessarily involve XAI. But how do you make sure that the other features that you have included that look more innocent, for example, postcode or educational background, how do you make sure that these features do not function as predictor of the attributes that you're trying to hide away from your model? In this case, feature attribution, feature importance, dependency chart are all XAI techniques that may be useful for debugging bias in your machine learning model. Reason number 3 is security. This is when you want to make sure that your deployed AI model is robust against adversarial attacks, so that it's not overly sensitive to perturbations in input data, or that it's not predicting based on spurious association. Here, to give an example, of facial recognition, where adversarial attacks would be images that have been maliciously manipulated so that it doesn't look different to human eyes, but is able to trick a model into a false classification. In this case, usually the benign and correctly classified examples would be able to produce you, or on these examples, you would be able to reason based on interpretable features such as eyes or noses, but that is not the case for these adversarial examples. So reason number 4 could be human decision aid. And this is when you are employing an AI model to generate hypotheses for knowledge discovery or experimentation design. So here, because the end goal of your endeavor is to understand or to know rather than just making something work, it's not enough to only focus on the performance. Or you might be embedding AI as an intermediary steps as opposed to the end step within the decision-making workflow of your domain experts, because your domain experts would need to either trust or take the results of AI model with a grain of salt, or even to reject its prediction outcome based on their knowledge. Additional transparency here can really aid this collaboration. And the last reason here is customer experience, simply because informed customers have been proven to engage more and stick for longer. So in this case, what we would really recommend is for you to collaborate with user experience researchers to really understand where additional transparency could alleviate pain in customer journey and help them have a better experience interacting with your products or services. To conclude, if you're ready to commit to XAI, what next? Well, we have more video in this series. Check it out. Thank you.